Jeff and I were up early. We're on the road. We hope to get to Bart's house in time to jump in a stand before dark. So let's see how it goes. It's 6:30 right now. We've been on the road for a half hour. We both got old trucks, so hopefully we both make it.
Well, we didn't make it in time to get out to a stand. So we got ourselves set up. And that's Eric's rack right there. Saturday morning, we're out hunting.
Jeff just shot one a few minutes ago. I'm going to stay put for now. Eric's across the way over there.
After a while, I got down to try to help Jeff find his deer, and the bolt just didn't look right. It was really actually greasy with a little muscle tissue on it. It was mostly greasy though, so we couldn't find anything to go with, so we called Eric and Bart over, and the four of us looked for the better part of 3 hours. We only found 2 spots of blood, and so we went back and we shot the crossbow on a target, and it was shooting low right, and so what we really think happened was we got kind of a brisket shot and just got mostly a flesh wound. I mean, the only thing we had was just 2 spots of blood with a little fat on it, and so we just had nothing to go with. And even though we followed where those 2 spots went, we really circled around a lot, did a whole bunch of walking. Hopefully it had fallen, but we never found anything. Later on in the trip, what we found out with Jeff's crossbow was that the windage knob was actually, the knob itself was coming out of the scope body, and so that's probably why he was having issues with his point of impact, point of aim. Maybe it got bumped hard somewhere, or maybe it was always like that, I don't know, but you know, it's unfortunate that you got a potential mechanical failure that doesn't help, you know, the stress of already taking shots at animals and being still and quiet and wind and all that. So it's unfortunate. So on to the evening hunt. The 4 of us head out.
This is our first evening out. Let me show you around. So I'm sitting here on the power line on the south side. Eric and Bart are in a food plot about 200 yards, maybe 250 down from me. And Jeff is in a double ladder on the same side of this power line, but about 200 yards past Bart and Eric. And I've got a nice little cubby off to my left, but it doesn't look like much is getting used.
First things I see are these couple of doe. Eventually they worked their way up the hill just inside the wood line and came out into the power line directly across from me. If that doe was a little slower, I might have been able to take a shot there. And then this tiny little fork came out, kind of pestered those does, and then came down the hill. Now, I'm not saying if he came out on the other side of that tree I would have shot, but he would have been a lot more tempting. Instead, he just ducked back into the woods. Now, during all of this, I hear 2 distinct crossbow shots from down in the food plot. I was thinking Eric probably shot one, and then, I don't know, it was 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes later, I hear a second shot. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe they shot one, we're sitting around waiting, and something else came out and Bart shot one. Well, what happened was they had a buck out in front of their blind at 20 yards broadside. Eric shot it. It bounded to the other side of the food plot and stood there. As long as that took, I don't remember what the time was, 10 to 20 minutes for that second shot that I heard. And it just stood there. And so Eric tried to get another shot in him. And so when I came down the hill and met up with him, we went back in the woods a little bit to try to follow it. And we were following a blood trail, but it kept going. You know, if it was you would think a lethal shot, it'd be a certain amount of distance, especially given the amount of time that was already allotted. And so what we did was we just backed out. Sunday morning comes, Eric and Bart go out early to go look for the deer, and Jeff and I go up in a tree.
Eric and I are back on our way to my place to find his deer he shot yesterday evening.
Got a buck last night, so tried tracking it last night, but we're going to come back this morning to see if we can find it.
That's the blood from last night, where Eric's deer was standing at when he shot him the second time, after trying to put a finishing shot on him. And then it went off in that direction. It's pretty dark out right now. It's hard to see.
Here's a marker we left last night, just a trash bag out of our pack, so we can find the trail again.
There should be some blood right in here somewhere. Hopefully we can find it. Got some more blood. Slowly following the trail.
I had some squirrels off to my right, but then they kept getting a little louder, so I peek over and I see a few doe coming in. So I just sat still and waited for them to come in.
Mate.
So I just shot the doe. I think she went down. Right there. Right there in the ditch by the road.
I got her field dressed, and Jeff and I got her hung up in the gambrel, and then we went over to help Eric and Bart, and we followed that blood trail until it completely trickled out. We were following single drops spaced out 8, 10, 20 feet at a time, and they just petered out. There was no deer. The blood trail dried up. We were over there almost 4 hours. Well, Eric and Bart were over there 5 hours, and it just couldn't find this thing. It was just gone. So, I mean, who knows what happened. We thought with the blood we had the night prior that it would just be laying in the woods 70 yards or something, and it was still on its feet moving and stopped bleeding. So I don't know. So Eric heads out at this point. He heads back home. He's got to be in class Monday. So at this point, Jeff, Bart, and I, we head out for the evening hunt. I go back into the same stand I was the night prior. Now, as a reminder, safety first. Always strap in when you go up in a tree stand. This buck is the only deer I saw that night, and he's a little 3x2. He kind of looks like a forkhorn, but he's got a tiny brow tine on one side. Dinner that evening are venison dogs, homemade by Bart.
Homemade by this man. Careful as she goes.
Oh, dry.
What's that?
That's when it's a little dry.
Monday morning, Jeff and I go out and we don't see anything. That evening, I go out and I take a climber and I go set up on a tree out back. Eventually I glimpse a deer butt going through the woods, and then it kind of turns around and I got a doe feeding right in front of me. And then all of a sudden this buck comes pouncing through straight at me toward her and knocks her out of the way and starts eating where she was eating. I see that it's at least a 6-point and probably an 8-point, so now I'm focused on this buck. But he won't turn sideways and he won't come in closer. They're playing around out about 50 yards through all these leaves, and then they circle back around on my right, and I get these does to pass right by in good shooting lanes, and I'm hoping the buck's going to follow. But he never does. He always stayed another 10 yards back in the thick stuff. We're going to conclude part 2 right here after Monday night, and I had all that action out in front of my climber. We'll see how that all pans out in part 3. We hope you like this video, and if you do, stick around. There's going to be a part 3, and if you haven't caught it, catch part 1. Feel free to give us a subscribe right there, and as always, thanks for watching.